and welcome to another day of Bookmas. It is the middle of December, so this is our mid-month wrap-up. We've so far managed to read 7 books in the beginning of December, which is good. It's not as many as I'd hoped we would have read at this point, because I just want us to be reading faster, because we're so close to getting our Goodreads goal, but we've still got to try and read another 8 books in the second half of the month, and that's more than we read in the first half, and it's going to be tight, but fingers crossed you'll get it done. So here are my thoughts on the 7 books I read at the beginning of the month. Let's start with the one that's going to be an unpopular opinion, and that is A Court of Thorns and Roses by Sarah J Maas. This didn't end well on a reread. I had decided I was going to reread the whole series, well, reread the first one and read A Court of Mist and Fury and A Court of Wings of Ruin for the first time each before A Court of Silver Flames comes out in February now, I think it is. It got pushed back. I struggle to remember. But this was a struggle. First time I read it, 5 stars, absolutely loved it. Second time I read it, I nearly slipped into a reading slump. I was struggling to get through it. I didn't want to pick it up. I was bored. I hated the characters. I can't remember why I liked Feyre so much first time around. I despise both Rhysand and Tamlin, and I can't understand why everybody cares about either of them or why anybody would feel invested in this love triangle when she just needs to up and run from them both. Just flee, Feyre, flee. I loved House of Earth and Blood when I read it earlier this year, so I thought I was going to love this even more on a reread. I thought this was going to go from being like one of those books that I rated 5 stars and I enjoyed and I kind of forgot about and it slipped by the wayside, to being a book that I really did think of as one of my favourites. But it's gone completely the opposite. If you don't know anything about Court of Thorns and Roses, a girl called Feyre kills a fae, and then she's taken by his High Lord to kind of pay back her debt, because there's like a treaty that if you take a life, then they can take your life, and instead of taking her life, he decides to like make her his. Kind of a Beauty of the Beast retelling, but yeah, not a fan second time around, and I'll be honest, I'm not sure if I'm going to pick up A Court of Mist and Fury anymore, and so that read-along thing that I was trying to host ended really well. So the next book that I'd like to talk about that I finished in December is The 2 OClock Boy, also known as His First Lie by Mark Hill, and this was a much better book for me. Whereas I gave A Court of Thorns and Roses 3 stars, I gave His First Lie 4 stars, and it was very close to jumping up to 5. However, it does have a very abrupt ending, and it's the kind of abrupt ending that means that you have no choice but to carry on with the sequel, which was good because I was planning on picking it up in December anyway, because I had got it on my December Hook It Up TBR, but it felt a bit of like a cheap way of ending it. Like, it was a really good story. So the story is that there's a detective called Ray Drake, and his past is kind of coming back to haunt him. He was the nephew of someone who was involved in like a cousin, I don't know, I can't remember. He had a relative called Sally who was involved in this children's home, and she was kind of involved with the guy who looked after the children. There was a lot of kind of dark things going on, like he was making them run drugs for him, and there's all kinds of abuse going on in the home. And that was when he was a child, and now he's grown up and he's a police officer, and he's realised that all of these people who are getting killed have a link, that they all were from the home or were connected to the home in some way. And so it's a really fascinating story because you've got like the kind of dark morality, I don't know what the word is, grey morality? No, because that's I guess. It's a really interesting story because Ray Drake has a lot of grey morality going on, because obviously he's a police officer, so you want to think he's on the side of good, but he's also tampering with a lot of evidence, and he's hiding things that link him to the children's home and to these characters, just so that you don't, like, the other detectives don't know that he's involved in the case in any way or linked to it. So if you're a fan of Luther, this is definitely going to be a book that you enjoy, and I'm looking forward to finally getting through the second one. I'm about 40 pages in. But I'm looking forward to seeing what happens with Ray Drake in the future, especially because some of his colleagues are kind of learning what was going on and they were getting a bit more suspicious of him, so it'll be interesting to see how the dynamic between them changes. But yeah, this one, it's a really cleverly plotted crime thriller, and there's some non-chronological aspect, so we jump back in time to when they're in the home and in the past, and then there's also the investigation going on in the current day, so you get to know all the characters really well and you get a lot of connections to them, which I was a massive fan of. The next book I'd like to talk about is a new favourite for me, and that's Illuminate by Jay Kristoff and Amy Kaufman. This was a 5 stars, and we read this in 2 sittings and could have easily just read it in the one. The year is 2575, and we're following a girl called Katie and her ex-boyfriend Ezra. So she actually breaks up with him the morning that their entire world comes falling down around them, because the little kind of colony where they live gets attacked by massive spaceships. And they're like an illegal colony, so they can't even try and seek justice in the traditional channels. So this is like, Sean likes to say that this isn't a book, but it's actually an art project, because there's like all different kind of bits going on throughout. You've got kind of like this AI that gives you some bits, and you've got different files, and you've got messenger chats, and you've got emails. There's like a whole bit where you have like tiny pictures of every single one of the deceased on one of these locations. You've got the casualty list, and there is honestly so much going on in this book, and I can see why everybody loves it so much, and I wish I hadn't waited this long to read it, because it was a 5-star for me and I think it was brilliant. I'm looking forward to carrying on with the next 2 books in the series, because I've already got them, and I'm looking forward to picking those up in January, hopefully, if I can hook the right ducks to be able to read them, because I really want to know what's going to end up happening in this story. The next book I'd like to talk about is another reread, and that's Ready Player One by Ernest Cline, and this is another reread that ended up making me drop my rating, which is disappointing. So this was a 5-star when I first read it back in 2014. I loved it, I thought that it was brilliant, and then this time around I just got a bit bored, so it got dropped down to a 4-star. So in Ready Player One, a guy called James Halliday has just passed away. He's the creator of this virtual reality MMORPG called The Oasis. So everybody has The Oasis. It's like the world's biggest game. So everybody plays The Oasis because it's the year 2045 and climate change is a lot worse, and basically all of the kind of cities have had to close down, like petrol and diesel, and I don't know, it's very dystopian. But everybody plays this game, and when James Halliday dies, instead of passing on his wealth and his riches to his family members, because he doesn't have any family left, he decides instead that he's going to host a competition. So you have to search for his Easter egg in the Oasis, you have to find 3 keys, go through 3 gates, find his egg, and then you become his heir, and you inherit the Oasis and all of his many fortunes and his mansion and everything that comes along with it. So we're following a guy called Wade Watts, and he is one of the people who is trying to find this egg. He's called a gunter, so it's like an egg hunter. And he manages to be the first person to find the copper key. And it starts off a whole string of excitement in his life when he meets other people that he's befriended. He meets other people that he's befriended through the Oasis, and they kind of have to decide whether to continue competing against each other or whether to team up to take down this evil corporation who are trying to win it just so that they can start charging people to use it. I really do think that this is a great book. I've heard a lot of bad things about the sequel, so I'm not that excited to pick up Ready Player 2, even though I did pre-order it and I was really excited. But it's a case that there's a lot of listing. It's quite monotonous, like it's constantly over and over again. Like James Halliday loves all of the things about the 80s, like the video games and the movies and the music and the movies and the video games, and it's like listing over and over again all these different like pop culture references, and it just got a bit draining. I didn't find it draining first time around because I've got a feeling that my eyes just kind of skimmed over it, and that I didn't really take in what I was reading because I was reading it in my head last time and I was reading it out loud this time, which is why it felt a bit slower and a bit stodgier. But yeah, I still really enjoyed it, and I still think that it's a great idea, and if the Oasis was a game, I would definitely be playing it. Sorry for the little delay, had to put the new battery in our light because it just randomly died, which was nice and atmospheric for the end of Ready Player One. The next book that I'd like to talk about is The Kiss by Lucy Courtenay. This is a book that I pulled out of my TBR jar, and I ended up enjoying far more than I thought I was going to. This is a girl goes to France, has a kiss with a guy, and he spins her this line saying that he's got Aphrodite's kiss. So when he kisses her, it like makes her tingle all the way down to like the tippy tips of her toes and like her fingers, and she's like, oh my god, there's something to this. This can't be like a mythology. This is real. And then she kisses a guy and the same thing happens, and she's trying to work out whether this kiss can get her best friend back with her ex-boyfriend. And it's like a bit wacky, a bit wild. It's very fun. But it was one of those things, and like I enjoyed it more than I thought I was going to, because I thought I was going to absolutely hate it. So I only gave it 3 stars, but I was actually quite chuffed with the fact that it wasn't a 1 star. I think that the concept is very fun. I'd never heard of the idea of an Aphrodite's kiss, so I think the concept of like, oh, is this kiss that's like travelling across the world for like generations, that's a really fun idea. But I think that there were just some problems with the story. Like, so the main character, whose name I've already forgotten because she's really, really memorable, she gets her friend Fran to cheat on her boyfriend because she's like, oh, he's like, he doesn't make you feel amazing. He just makes you feel like okay. Like, you think he's nice, you think he's good, like you deserve better than that. And to be honest, like, just let your friend stay with the nice good guy. Like, that's fine. And then she apologizes and she's like, oh, I shouldn't have done that. Like, I made a mistake. I told you to do this. But like, it kind of takes away from the fact that like Fran does have independent thought. She doesn't have to just kiss the first barman she sees just because her friend's like, your boyfriend's boring. That's not something that she has to do. I liked the fact that it was characters that were at college / sixth form, because the only way that I can remember reading with characters at college or sixth form is Hollyborn. So it's nice that there are other authors writing slightly older characters, but then I thought that the maturity of the characters made them feel that they were younger teen, which was an interesting kind of juxtaposition, that you've got these older people who are thinking about their own finances, and they're worried about the bank, and they're worrying about getting a part-time job to afford food and things for college, and yet they're just kind of going crazy about a kiss. And it just made me feel like there was just kind of like a conflict there that didn't feel right. And I also thought it just ended quite abruptly. Like, the whole way through they're like getting ready to put on this play, and it's like lots of build up, and then it just ends really suddenly. And I don't know, I'm already struggling to remember how it ended, because the ending was just kind of a non-entity for me. Yeah, not really anything else to say. 3 stars. Another book that had a very surprising ending was Wolflight by Yaba Badoe. This one I ended up giving 2.5 stars to, because this one was just too much for me to deal with. So there are 3 characters. There's Lynette, Adoma, and Zula, and they each have like an animal, like a spirit animal. So Lynette has a bird, Adoma's a leopard, and Zula is a wolf. And they live in different areas of the world. Lynette lives down in Cornwall, Adoma is in Ghana, and I believe that Zula is in Mongolia, but don't quote me on that. Malaysia? I don't remember. Apparently I don't have a very good memory for details for books, which is something that is becoming more and more apparent the more of these I film. But anyway, they each live in a different corner of the globe, but they're sisters, so they like communicate with each other in wolflight, which is like their sleeping state. So it's like there's magical realism going on. There's a lot of stuff about like the way that people are abusing the planet, because each of them has their own special location to protect. So Zula has the Giant's Mouth, which is a mountain. Adoma has a forest, and Lynette has a lake. And they have to kind of protect these areas from the corruption of what they call the skinwalkers. And I think it's a fascinating story. It's lyrically told, the writing is beautiful, but I just think that the actual kind of lore isn't very well explored. It's just taken for granted that these characters meet in Wolflight. Like, it's never really explained what Wolflight is. I don't know if it's based off of like mythology that I'm just not aware of, so this is something that other people know instantly, like, oh yeah, Wolflight, like that's this, or whether it is something that Yaba Badoe has made for this world. So it is something that I'm going to need to look into, because it does still really fascinate me. I just think that aspect of it isn't very well crafted, because it's just not explored as thoroughly as it could be, and it isn't very fleshed out. I also think that this is another book. We're just having them all at the moment. Like, the ending was so sudden that I genuinely thought that my NetGalley copy had gotten, like, corrupted or something. Because it just ends. Like, you're in the middle of the big conflict. It's been building up to this conflict the whole time, and it's over. It makes no sense. I was planning on giving it, like, 3.5, possibly 4 stars, because, like, the writing is beautiful. I just think it's too clever for me to really understand it or appreciate it thoroughly. But that ending, man, just messed with my head. I couldn't do it. So it got dropped down to a 2.5, and I'm beginning to wonder if I should have just put it down to a 2. But again, like, the writing's just so beautiful. Like, the descriptions are gorgeous. I just think that more needed to be put into building the magical aspects of it so that they made more sense. Sean read it too. I'd like to welcome my best friend and helper Sunny to the stage for us to talk about our last book. I'd also like to thank Sophia for the atmospheric background noise. If you've been able to hear her singing constantly while I've been filming, I'm very sorry, but she's happy. What can you do? But yes, the last book that I've read so far this month is Dangerous Remedy by Kat Dunn, and this was a 4-star. So it's been a pretty good reading month so far. We've had a 5, we've had 2 4s? Can't remember already. I've literally just finished explaining them. But we've had 2 3s, a 5, 2 4s, 2 3s, and a 2.5. That's not 7. That's not right. Hang on, what have I done? I've forgotten someone. 3 4s. A 5, 3 4s, 2 3s. Right, okay, now I'm ready. So it's been a pretty good reading month so far. We've had a 5, we've had 3 4s, we've had 2 3s, and we've had 1 2.5 star. So it's been, like, mostly in the upper half, which is good. But Dangerous Remedy is the first book in a duology. This is set in France in 1794. I had to check because I'm terrible at years. It's like the French Revolution. But this follows a group who are called the Battalion of Death. So you've got Camille, you've got Ada, you've got Gilles, and you've got Al. And the Battalion of Death go around freeing prisoners who are going to be beheaded. And they're hired by a duke. They call him Le Duc. So I'm guessing that's duke. I'm not very good at French. But he hires them, and he's like, "Can you save my daughter, please?" So they manage to get into this prison. It begins as they're breaking into this prison that nobody has ever managed to free someone from. So they crash a hot air balloon into the courtyard, and then they're, like, breaking through all the doors, and they're trying to, like, find this prisoner. So if you like heist novels, this one starts off with an amazing scene. And yeah, they manage to free the prisoner, which is good. But then they realise that she's, like, an electric person. So she has been, like, scientifically manipulated as a fetus. And when she was born, she had, like, some kind of control over electricity. So she is grey, and she has, like, stormy skin. And she can, like, control and manipulate electricity, which is really cool. But then they realise that the Duke who has hired them is not her father after all. And they start realising that they're involved in something that's a lot darker than it first seemed. So they thought they were just rescuing somebody's daughter, but they're actually involved in something a lot more serious. I really loved this. It was one of those books where I just loved all of the characters. Like, you've got Camille is very prickly, and she really cares about the battalion, but she can't show it. So they all kind of joke about the fact that she's not very caring, and that she's kind of gonna scold them for things, and she's gonna be the boss, really. But she does really love them all like a family, and they don't see that as clearly as she does, and that makes for some interesting dynamics. Camille and Ada are dating, but then Ada realises that there's more to Camille's past that she doesn't know about that makes some conflict for them. So their relationship is so well fleshed out, and I really, really am shipping them because they're just both brilliant characters in their own respect, and I think they're made so much better when they're together. You've got Gil, who is an ex-soldier. He's like deserted, but he doesn't want to go home because he doesn't want to be a failure. So he's decided to do good work with the battalion instead. And then you've got Al, whose parents are aristocrats, and so he wants to get away from them. And he's also gay, so they've like abandoned him, but he's still kind of got their name shadowed over him because of the fact they are aristocrats and this is the French Revolution. So there are a lot of different interesting dynamics going on in this cast of characters, and all of the characters are explored really well. It's not a case of, because we're mostly following Camille and Ada, you mostly jump between their viewpoints, but it's not a case that they're the only characters that matter, because Al and Gil also have really good storylines too. And there's a lot more going on in this. I don't want to spoil too much of it because there are some twists and turns which I found really fascinating, especially when another character shows up and it's someone from Camille's past, and they add a lot to the story. But I'm honestly, like, I can't wait for the sequel to this. I read Enchanté by Gita Trelise last year, and it feels like it was trying to do what this book did, but this book did it well. So Enchanté is also set in the French Revolution. You've also got someone who is like linked to the printing presses and things. But that book I just really didn't enjoy. And this one, I don't know what it was. I don't know if it's Kat Dunn's writing or if it was the cast of characters, but there was something about this one that just really gripped me, and it was definitely a 4-star, and I'm, definitely going to be carrying on with this duology. And so that was the 7 books I've read so far this month. I hope you enjoyed this video. I'm sorry that my brain just seems to be melting every time I try and do a wrap up at the moment. Hopefully that will stop, because it's very inconvenient considering I film 2 of these videos a month and I can no longer find the words to even get through one of them. But yes, thank you for watching. I hope you've been enjoying Bookmas so far. We've got another video coming up tomorrow, and I hope you will come back to watch it. If you like this video, please like it. If you'd like to subscribe, I'd be super duper grateful, and it's really means a lot to me that we've got so many more of you who are coming and hanging out. And my lovely daughter has just brought us a little Santa to say Happy Bookmas Booktube, and we will see you tomorrow. Bye bye. Can you wave bye bye? Can you wave bye bye? Good gal, yeah. Oh, Ezra also waves on the floor. He's a good boy.